Hey, good morning, friends. Today is Wednesday, April the 16th, 2025, and the time now is 7:35 a.m. So, friends, I want to talk about Ethiopia. I want to talk briefly or provide a brief statement or brief comment about Ethiopia. I want to talk specifically about two things. One being food insecurity in Ethiopia, okay, the current state of Ethiopian food insecurity, especially dealing with droughts and the recent war in Ethiopia. And friends, I also want to talk briefly about GERD. And we are talking in this case about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Now, friends, if you're watching my video for the first time, if you're watching a video from this channel for the first time, or if you're new to this channel, I want to first thank you for being a member or for just watching, period. Please share with your friends and your families. Now, friends, this is how this channel is set up. Every institution, every international institution in the world does have a playlist on this channel. Whether we are talking about the African Union, the European Union, NATO, the World Bank, the United Nations, and so on. Also, friends, every country in the world has at least two playlists. One is titled the country's name and the other domestic the country's name. So this is how it is set up. The country's name playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that focus specifically on the country's geopolitical position, the country's relations with countries in its region, and with countries and institutions all over the world outside of its region. In this case, we are talking about Ethiopia. So the Ethiopia playlist will feature videos, talks, ideas, or programs that pertains to Ethiopian relationship with countries and institutions around the world and in Africa. Now, friends, for the domestic the country's name playlist, it is going to feature videos, talks, programs, ideas that focus specifically on the domestic situation within the country. In this case, we are talking about Ethiopia. Therefore, friends, the domestic Ethiopia playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas about democracy in Ethiopia, about the civil war, about water management and distribution, food supply, food insecurity, education, infrastructure and development, youth unemployment, and so on, and so on, and so on. Now, friends, one newspaper article states that Ethiopia is on the verge of starvation. And the paper or the article is stressing the recent event in Ethiopia, whether we are talking about the war in Ethiopia, destabilization, and also current droughts in the region and in Africa, where as a result of the drought, we are seeing less rainfall, goats, cows, sheep, and so on, basically livestock's dying. In addition, because of what Donald Trump did, it is said that Donald Trump basically revoking USAID from countries all over the world. It is leading to economic and financial tension within these countries, where USAID, prior to Donald Trump revoking or expelling the program, or canceling or suspending the program, however phrase or word you want to use, was the most significant or was among the most significant manner in which countries were able to fund some programs within their realm. In this case, through the USAID program, you could have the funding of agriculture and so on within Ethiopia. In this case, friends, we are talking about the interior communities, okay? The very rural communities in Ethiopia. And in this case, friends, it is also the same thing for countries throughout Africa and around the world. Now, as much as that is a bad thing, that the destabilization caused by the civil war in Ethiopia with the northern Tigray region, which led to the displacement of hundreds of thousands or millions of people and the death of thousands of people. The drought is also creating problem in Ethiopia, which is basically leading to lot of financial and economic situation, bad situation for rural communities in Ethiopia. Perhaps the next story could be good for Ethiopia. So for the past few years, Ethiopia has been working on its GERD system, which is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. This is an hydroelectric plant. It does a couple of things. One, most important things will be protecting, preserving water, which in this case, the hydroelectric power plant, you preserve water, you distribute water, okay? Water is a necessity for a place, a region such as the Horn of Africa and a country such as Ethiopia, which also sometimes will see drought. It's a big deal, okay, to build a dam. But also with the dam, since it is a hydroelectric plant, it does generate electricity. And in this case, could help Ethiopia not only solve its issue with electricity, but also export electricity to other countries as well. So now it is said that Ethiopia is at a point where it is getting ready to inaugurate the GERD, okay, the dam, once again known as the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam. Now, friends, it is said that the dam is about 98.66% completed, which means that in the coming months, or perhaps by the end of this year or early next year, the dam will be completed and will be inaugurated in this case and operated in full capacity. However, as of now, it is said that a couple of plants within the system are in full operation. Now, friends, as much as this is a good thing for Ethiopia, there could also be a problem, an issue, and this relates to countries such as Sudan and Egypt throwing fit. And they are right to do so as well because, according to them, what is going to happen by building the dam? They could be starved of water because building the dam means Ethiopia has to fill the dam to capacity for its domestic consumption, which basically will starve them, their country, their people, their population of water. Now, I don't know for Sudan exactly, but it is said that Egypt depends on the Nile River for about 90% of its fresh water, which in this case, they are right to throw fit that Ethiopia building the dam is going to be problematic for them in terms of their water security, their national security. However, we have to be honest, Egypt does have dam too, and I can remember the Aswan Dam being one of them. Egypt is a very strong country in terms of its electricity and hydroelectric system, its power plants, okay, or dam system. Because Egypt is a desert and it needs water, it needs electricity. But the question is, if Egypt could do this, why can't Ethiopia do the same? Perhaps then we can answer truthfully because both Sudan and Egypt are downstream countries, which means when the water comes from Ethiopia, the highlands of Ethiopia, it flows down through Sudan and then into Egypt and to the Mediterranean Sea. So these countries are right, they are fair in terms of their fit that they are throwing. But I do remember speaking with a friend who, in the past years, there was a tension when this dam was about to be built, that there were many who were basically anticipating war. And I remember this friend telling me that both Sudan and Egypt and Ethiopia do not have to go to war. Because, first of all, the Nile River is the source of life for all three countries and countries in that region. They can both use the Nile, they can both benefit from the Nile. What they have to do is build several dams, I do believe. Now, Ethiopia is building its dam, which is about 98.66% completed. Egypt has dam or dams. Therefore, Sudan should build its dam as well, or dams, however you want to say it. What I think the three countries, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Egypt, must do is take turn, both in regulating the water flow and filling their own dams to capacity. For example, let's say this year is Ethiopia's year. So that means Ethiopia is going to take full control of the flow of the water. Ethiopia is going to prioritize filling its dams to capacity. But at the same time, Ethiopia is going to let water flow, okay, to Sudan and Egypt as deemed necessary. Ethiopia is not going to starve them of water, but Ethiopia is going to prioritize filling its dam, okay, to capacity. Now, let's say next year is Sudan's year. Ethiopia is not going to control the flow of the water. Sudan is going to control the flow of the water. Sudan is going to fill its dams to capacity. But again, let the water flow, okay, as deemed necessary to Egypt. So now let's say that the following year is Egypt's turn. Egypt now gets to control the flow of the water. Egypt is going to prioritize filling its dam or dams to capacity, while Ethiopia and Sudan must let the water flow. In this case, it could be beneficial for Egypt, I think, more because I think Egypt has several dams. So if Egypt has to fill all these dams, Egypt is going to pump water and fill the heck out of the dams. And Ethiopia and Sudan will just have to let the water flow. But I think all these countries can manage the system. And I think there could be or should be a piping system, a water management and distribution system, where if Egypt's dams are being full beyond capacity, there is a piping system that could shoot water back upstream to Ethiopia and to Sudan, to their reservoir. In this case, the excess water is not allowed to flow into the Mediterranean. I think that could benefit all three countries. It could benefit all three of them significantly. Now, let's say that this year is Ethiopia's turn to control the flow of water. Ethiopia is filling its dam to capacity. Yes, the water is being let to flow to both Sudan and Egypt. However, as it is the case in Africa and in various parts of the world, let's assume that God decided to just shower Ethiopia with more water and just decide to dump Ethiopia, okay, within 1 week, as much rain as Liberia gets in an entire year, which means we could see flood, massive flood in Ethiopia. Therefore, what Ethiopia could do is just let the water flow. Let the water flow into both Sudan and Egypt, and they can fill their dams to capacity. In that case, the water is not lost. It's not lost to the Mediterranean Sea. Now, if the flood also affect both Sudan and Egypt, if the piping system that I'm talking about is elaborate, it doesn't have to just connect the three countries, Ethiopia, Sudan, and Egypt. It could connect other countries such as Chad, Mali, and so on. And in that case, the excess water will be allowed to flow into these countries. Let's say they got some kind of lake, artificial lake or reservoir. The excess water could be allowed to flow in these countries. In this case, it could be a means for Africa to maintain, to preserve water for its security, for the various countries, okay, along the Nile rivers, and also the other countries in Africa as well. But if you ask me, I think it's a good thing for Ethiopia to maintain water security for agriculture and other means, for domestic consumption, for industrialization, and for its electricity as well. But I also think that all three countries, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Sudan, do not have to go to war. I think they should not let this ignite a tension. I think they all have right to the Nile River. They can all build dams and they can all regulate water so that all of them and the rest of Africa benefit. Because if this situation turned into anything that could lead to any hot conflict, the region suffer, Africa suffer. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. But friends, I'm going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, my friends. But most especially, and most importantly or important, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace.